morning. My name is Everett Fly, and I'm a landscape architect and an architect. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm pleased to welcome you to Black Communities 1, the first session discussion. We have scheduled 4 presentations this morning. You'll have to bear with us. We're working with schedules, so we're going to do them one at a time. One of the presentations is bilingual. We have a translator, so we thought that would work out to do it individually. And then we'll take questions, if it's all right with the audience and the presenters. We'll take questions at the end. I'll moderate the time and make sure that we have some time at the end to take your questions. Many of you know that African American communities come in many shapes and forms, and origins and sources. So the collection of presentations that we have this morning, I think, represents that very well. The first presentation is from Ms. Alcione Amos, who's a curator at the Smithsonian Anacostia Museum. And Ms. Amos is going to talk to us about the Berry Farm, Hillsdale, Post-Bellum African American community. Ms. Amos.
Good morning. I'm a little bit nervous that I'm the first one, but I don't know if it's good or bad. But anyway, here I am. I am a curator at the Anacostia Community Museum in Washington, D.C., and the history that I'm going to tell you is that of an African American settlement created by the Freedmen's Bureau right after the Civil War in Washington, D.C. First of all, I have to start by explaining the compound name. Almost from the beginning, the residents of Berry Farm were upset over the name. Berry was a family that had owned enslaved people. So it didn't seem like that was good to have that name in a settlement occupied by freedmen. It seemed to be disrespectful. A change to Hillsborough was proposed in 1872, but it was defeated. The name Potomac City appears in documents and in maps, but it was never adopted by the residents. And finally, a law passed in 1874 renamed it Hillsdale for its many hills and dales. This name never appeared on the maps and is not officially used. Anyway, at the museum we decided to do a compound name to honor this very complex history of naming the community. During the Civil War, between 30 and 50,000 African Americans fled into Washington, come from Virginia and Maryland. As the story goes, in Virginia, as the Union troops moved in, people left and moved into Washington. They would walk, they would take horses, they would take carts, they would even come by train and by boat. But in the city, they were living in settlements, makeshift housing, like you can see in this picture. They were not living in very good condition. General Howard, the superintendent of the Freedmen's Bureau, received a visit from a gentleman who owned land in downtown Washington that was being occupied by a group of refugee African Americans. And he told General Howard, "You'll have to move these people out. I need my land back." And General Howard decided to go there and talk to the community. And he got together the men. Of course, at that time, he was not concerned about the women. He got the men together and asked them, "What would help you? What you need to move out, and I need to know what is going to make you self-supporting." And they all said, "Land, give us land." We have to remember that these people were rural people. They knew how to cultivate the land. They knew how to take care of themselves. All they need was an opportunity. So General Howard decided to use $52,000 from a fund that he had in the Freedmen's Bureau to buy the Berry Farm. This is original map of 1867, 375 acres. He divided it in 359 one-acre lots, and by October 1868, 300 lots were already sold. It was a great success. And mind you, I have to tell you that everything was paid for. Nothing was given free of charge. The people that settled Berry Farm had to pay for the lots and had to buy the lumber to build their houses. Berry Farm included some very modern concepts. There was a kind of a mortgage because people could put a down payment of $15 and then pay the rest in 2 years. It was either $150 or $300. If the lots are at a better section, it was $300. There was sweat equity. They built their own houses with their own hands. There were stories of people working in Washington all day long and then walking to Berry Farm, which is across the river, it's quite far away, and building their houses at the light of lanterns. So it was, independent thing. They received technical assistance and training. There was a guy called Frederick Smith, who was called the boss carpenter. He would go around telling people how they should build their houses and what was the best way to do it. Affirmative action in employment. General Howard would hire people that were living, buying lots and building houses to live in Berry Farm to open the roads so they would have some money to pay for the lots and to buy the lumber. He also inked an agreement with somebody who was having a big project in Washington, building project in Washington, to hire people from Berry Farm. And there was also provision of resources and incentives for community action. Right away, they built a school, the people bought the lot, and General Howard provided the materials and the workers to build a school. And they also built by the side of the school a church. So, and by the way, in this street, Douglas Road, there is still today a school and a church. So from the very beginning of the community, there has been a church and a school in that area. The positive results were soon apparent, and General Howard gave this statement in October 14, 1868. Anyone who sees the prosperity of this community witnesses the new hopefulness with which most of its members seem to be inspired. This is a house that was built by William Fractious on Elvis Avenue around 1868. This center of this is the original house right here. This is an addition that was put in when the street received water. This community was very ill-served. Until the 1920s, there was no sewage and there was no running water. People had to go to the corners of the main streets to get water from pumps. So when first water came into that neighborhood, he built that addition, which was a bathroom, and was a bedroom. Now, starting in the 1940s, Berry Farm, Hillsdale, which had evolved into a strong middle-class African-American community, began a steady decline. It always started with the building of a freeway that cut it in the middle. This is Berry Farm, Hillsdale, in 1888. You can see that, there was still individual houses all over, lots of space. This is 1936. It's more crowded, but still there is a space. And this is 1988. Nothing. Very few freestanding houses, and the community didn't have enough services for all the people that were jammed in and that was the beginning of its demise. By the 1970s, it had lost its, sense of community and its identity. I am writing a book telling this history, and because I think it's very important that people know. I believe that the past informs the present and the future. Thank you very much for your presence.
Jaeger, you ready? Our next presentation is from Ms. Germaine Yeager, and she's going to talk to us about sorry. Ms. Amos made her deadline on the presentation, I'm sorry. Ms. Yeager is going to talk to us. About the Lincoln City community in North Carolina. Ms. Germaine Yeager.